So hi, real quick. I just want to say that the video quality is a little bit different. It's because I just changed over my phone, and so yeah, I record all my videos from my phone because I don't have a camera because I'm too cheap and broke. So I use my camera to record videos, and so if the camera quality's a little bit different, that's why. It shouldn't be too much different, I don't think, but it could be. So I'm just preparing people for that now. And so that's what I wanted to say at the start of the video, just to address that, because I know someone's going to point it out if I don't say it. So there you go. Now, on to the topic of today's video, Pride Month, and how I identify. Yay! Now, I don't necessarily like all of the month holidays, like Autism Awareness Month, Pride Month, etc. But that's a personal thing for me. Maybe I'll go into really in-depth opinions on that at some point. But that's not the point of this video. Today is a video about Pride Month, because regardless of how I feel about the monthly holidays, I still think it's important to get something out there for people who are struggling. Not just kids, but anyone who's struggling. Because there's sometimes adults who just deny who they are or don't realize and are wondering why they're miserable. And so this is just me trying to help anyone who it can help, basically. And, even if watching this video gives one more person that feeling of not being alone, then that's great. So how do I identify? I identify as a pansexual, gender-fluid person. That is generally how I identify. And pansexual, I don't think I need to explain too much. It seems like people on the internet have a pretty good grasp on what that is at this point. But regardless, I'll still explain anyway for those of you that might not know. Basically, pansexual is being attracted to someone for their personality and not necessarily based on looks. So, like, for example, I'm not attracted to just every man or just every woman I see. I'm attracted to the nice men and women that I see. And so that's what being pansexual pretty much means. It means that you're willing to fall in love with anyone, and that it's a lot more about who the person is as a whole, rather than necessarily just women me like it, or men me like it. And so that's that. And then gender fluid, I guess, might be a little bit more unknown. I didn't know about it, but I'm not going to assume everyone hasn't known about it. Because I'm sure there are some people out there that are like, actually, I've known all my life what gender fluid means, and I'm really offended that you think I don't like that, or I don't know that. But yeah, so, it's just me saying I didn't know it, so there might be people out there who don't know it, even if they are a little bit more into the LGBTQ community stuff. So I'm going to try and break it down as best I can and make it understandable to those that might not know. So basically, in between male and female, there is intersex, which is people who have traits of both, where maybe they look a little bit more feminine, but then they also have some traits of masculine features, and it creates this clash in the middle of a human being. And so that's intersex. And that's important for everything else I'm about to discuss. Of course, we know trans, which is effectively wanting to be either being a man and wanting to be a woman, or being a woman and wanting to be a man. And so we have those, where it's someone who wants to switch, but they only want to switch once. They have one gender identity that they think it better fits them than what they currently are. And then we have people who are somewhere in between, where they're not fully male, but they're not fully female either, which is actually a genetic thing, I think. Don't quote me on that. But I know it's like a thing that people are born with. Like, you can actually be born intersex, or be born with mismatched parts, so to speak. And so, which if you are, that's great. That's amazing. You're unique. Celebrate it, please. But the reason why I wanted to bring up intersex and trans is because gender fluid is sort of in that weird category in between, where it's kind of like being intersex, where you don't necessarily fully align with one gender identity or the other at any given time. But there's also an aspect of trans in there where it's also where your gender identity is also constantly changing. So it's kind of like trans, it's kind of like intersex. And so that's where gender fluid sits. Because basically being gender fluid means that you don't have a solid gender identity and it changes almost constantly. It can happen in different rates for different people. For me, it usually happens around every month or so, maybe a few weeks, where I'll have a few weeks where I'm good and I'm like, yes, I'm a man. I enjoy being a man. I'm going to go and do manly things like, I don't fucking know, build a shed. And then there are other times where I feel more feminine and I want to wear more feminine clothes, maybe, or strip away all my body hair because ew. And so it's those kinds of things. And so that's basically what gender fluid is. This gender fluid is you don't necessarily have one gender identity throughout your entire life, but you instead kind of swap between a lot. And I think that, and that's why I thought I was trans for a little bit, because I would have moments where I'm like, I really, really, really wish I was a girl in this moment. And so, and of course I know like, oh hey, I've had moments where I've thought this throughout my entire life, so therefore it must equal trans, right? No, it doesn't necessarily. And so, because like I said, I've also had other times where I am perfectly fine being a man, and and I don't necessarily care that I'm not a girl. And yeah, that's gender fluid. Where, and so that's the definition of it. And so I do want to apologize because I did say I was trans a lot, and I mentioned it really, really briefly on the channel. And I also, like, I mentioned it really, really briefly on this channel, and I also mentioned it a lot on Twitter. And yeah, no, I'm sorry for that. I genuinely thought I was trans. I'm gender fluid. I'm very sorry. And part of that was just because I didn't know what gender fluid actually was or what gender fluid meant. I just more so knew it as just a random word, where it's just like, yes, this is a word. I didn't necessarily realize it was part of LGBTQIA+. I didn't necessarily realize that it was an actual like gender identity term. I just kind of knew it that it was a term that existed out there, and that I guess could apply to me, but I didn't realize it did because I didn't know what it meant. And so when I said I was trans, it was going based on the thoughts of I really feel like I want to be a girl right now. Clearly, this must be trans. But in actuality, it was me having a feminine moment while being gender fluid. It's confusing. I don't understand. I don't expect everyone to understand it. But if that sounds at all like you, congratulations. Welcome to the club. And so that's basically it for like definitions and such. And kind of, I guess, even how I came across it. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to make this video really quick to more so, like I said, just help people out there who maybe aren't sure, who are maybe like me and are like, I think I'm trans, but I also have this weird moments where I want to be more masculine. That's okay. And if you take anything away from this video, just realize, please, that a gender is not necessarily certain actions or things like that. Like, anyone can go build a shed. Anyone can go and do other things. And so gender identity doesn't necessarily tie into what it is you want to do at that moment. There are plenty of men who want to go and be hairdressers and such. And there are plenty of women who want to go into sports and cars and all that sort of stuff. And so just remember, nothing's solid. Everyone's confused. And no matter who you are, all I ask is that you stay awesome.